Who commissioned? Who commissioned the work, and when? Popular legend has it that it was Matilda, William's wife. And people speak of the tapestry of La Reine Mathilde, of Queen Matilda. And actually, that goes back to the early 18th century when the tapestry was studied for the first time. Benedictine sort of historian studied it, and there was a lithograph in his paper, and he gave the lithograph a caption, Matilda's Tapestry, and that kind of, I suppose, captured the imagination and has, caught on and is kept with us. It's not Matilda at all. There is still speculation every now and again. For example, Edith of Wessex, but that's very unlikely. We'll come across her later. The consensus today is that it's a man called Odo, Bishop Odo of Bayeux, who commissioned the tapestry to go into and embellish the cathedral he was building. Who was Odo, or Bishop Odo? He was half brother to William the Conqueror. Same mum, different dad. And I put down there a companion with a big C, because he was a companion in the sense he went with William across the channel, this extraordinary enterprise, this adventure of a group from a princely territory within the Frankish kingdom goes across on boats to conquer a viable state, that of England. And so he's a companion to William on that expedition and a key advisor. We'll see that through. He funded ships for the invasion. He fought at Hastings. You see the photograph top right, where from the Bayeux Tapestry, of course, that image is showing him in sort of, fairly kind of bishopy kind of pose. But he wasn't that religious a man. He's much more of he was only bishop really because he was William's half brother. He was much more of a sort of warrior statesman. And in the image below from the Bayeux Tapestry, do you see the subtitle? I didn't mention that. The tapestry has these fairly summary subtitles, if you like, the tituli in Latin. And here it says, Hic Odo Eps Episcopus Baculum. Here is Odo, the bishop, holding his mace to encourage the troops. This is Bishop Odo mounted on a horse right in the middle of battle. And, bishops sort of biblically, they're not allowed to draw blood and therefore carry swords and stuff. But you can carry a club like that and bludgeon people to death, and that's okay. And that's the kind of bishop that Odo was. Anyway, he was bishop, and he was building a new Romanesque cathedral in Bayeux here. And across in England after the conquest, he becomes, thanks to William taking so much land and distributing a lot of that to his family, he becomes a huge, landowner, has vast estates, and notably in Kent. And so he becomes the Earl of Kent. And wealth, from Kent is helping to build this cathedral. And he probably commissioned the tapestry to adorn the nave of the cathedral, which, as I say, was dedicated on the 14th of July, 1077. So the tapestry, of course, then, if we accept that as a date, and everything in the, the whole story of the Bayeux Tapestry, everything is open to question. So it's the sort of the weight of probability, decades of scholarship bringing you down to certain conclusions. But it's an important point that nothing is certain. But the tapestry can, if we accept that it was shown in the cathedral at its dedication, the tapestry can be dated obviously between the dates of the actual events depicted and that first showing, which takes us to the years 1067 to 76. And then there's a bit of an arcane debate as it was it the earlier or later period, but let's say around 1070, the time of the actual fabrication, if you like, of the Bayeux Tapestry. But it was carried out by whom? And the answer to that is quite simply the English. It is the English who did the actual physical, fabrication of the tapestry, and a few kind of pointers as to why we can be sort of fairly confident in asserting that. The first one I mentioned there, and it's corresponding to that smaller photograph at the top on the right. The margins, particularly at the beginning, quite often actually featuring Aesopian fables, fables which are would have been at the time unfamiliar to the Normans, but of course familiar to the English. Here I've put the example of the fox and the crow. Do you see here the crow is nicked a bit of cheese or something, and he's accidentally let it drop, and the fox is there to nick it. A kind of an interesting subtext there would be, it's like if it's the Anglo-Saxons actually doing the work, there you could have a sort of almost a hidden meaning, which is like, a thief stealing from a thief, that kind of Anglo-Saxon view of the Normans. But anyway, Fable's unfamiliar to the Normans. If I look at the bottom photograph, where you see that lettering, the use of Anglo-Saxon lettering, talked about these tituli, these subtitles, as it were, in the tapestry. They're using English lettering. And so Gurth was actually Harold's brother, is pictured here in the tapestry. And instead of a TH, we've got the Anglo-Saxon D with a line through it. And so the style of lettering. It's actually a word associated slightly later, but Opus Anglicanum, the work of the English, is the name given to needlework. The English women were so famed for their needlework that they had this phrase. So we're talking about England, and even more precisely, we can perhaps hone in on Kent, that power base, if you like, for Odo, and indeed Canterbury. And even more precisely, St. Augustine's Abbey in Canterbury. A very good example to the left, but there are others of this, is that if you take the manuscripts, St. Augustine's Abbey was famed for its manuscripts, and notably the Gospels, St. Augustine's Gospels. Look here, top left, this illustration from the Gospels of the Last Supper, with Jesus presiding and blessing the bread and so on. And then look below at it's like a huge dinner before the Battle of Hastings and so on. We have exactly the same layout, if you like, the round table and so on. Instead of Jesus, we have Bishop Odo again presiding, and he's blessing the bread and the fish and so on. And that similarity, you can find, there are other examples too, for example, shipbuilding and stuff I won't go into, but you're finding proximity from existing manuscripts from St. Augustine's with images within the Bayeux Tapestry. And interestingly, Abbot Scotland was the abbot at Canterbury during that 1070s period, but he was also formerly had been the treasurer and head of the scriptorium at Mont Saint-Michel in Normandy. The scriptorium is what? It's like a workshop where you're getting monks doing a collective work. You're overseeing this collective work of producing a beautiful manuscript. Well, Scotland could be taking these skills to do the same thing as sort of a collective work on a tapestry. And many people think that he would have been the head designer. And if you look, we'll get into the Mont Saint-Michel figures in the tapestry. And if you look bottom right here, it's actually the first image that we have of the Mont Saint-Michel is within the Bayeux Tapestry. Do you see the mound itself, and the church on top on a platform, and the Romanesque bays and so on. And the little chap at the right, in the margin, pointing at his abbey, many people believe that is Scotland, getting himself a little mention in the tapestry itself. And another really interesting sort of indicator that the tapestry was such a brilliant photograph as well, was carried out in Canterbury, is that, the tapestry names very few knights. Only 3 knights are actually named in the tapestry, and 2 of them had direct links to Canterbury Abbey. And one of them, a guy called Vital, the other was called Werard. Vital, here we see him, he's been sent to scout out and is coming back to report to William that he's seen Harold's army. He's pointing back to Harold's army. And so Vital, he was actually a lay brother of that Augustine's Abbey in Canterbury.